When we talk about the great empires that shaped the history of the Indian subcontinent, one name often stands quietly in the background, overshadowed by more famous conquerors. Yet, without this man, the Delhi Sultanate might never have survived long enough to build its legacy. His name was Shams-ud-Din Iltutmish, the man who transformed chaos into order and who gave the early Muslim rule in India its true foundation. Some call Qutbuddin Aibak the founder of the Sultanate, but historians agree that it was Iltutmish who truly built it, strengthened it, and gave it permanence. To understand his story, we must first travel back to the early 13th century, a time when the map of North India was fractured, unstable, and full of ambition. The Ghurid Empire had recently extended its power into India through conquests led by Muhammad of Ghor. When Muhammad died in 1206, his vast territories began to fall apart, torn by rival generals who had once served under him. Among them was Qutbuddin Aibak, who established his rule in Delhi. But Aibak's reign was short-lived. He died unexpectedly in 1210, leaving behind a fragile and uncertain dominion. In this turbulent time emerged Iltutmish, a man whose early life was anything but royal. He was born around 1174 CE in the region of Turkestan in Central Asia. He was not of noble birth. In fact, as a child, he was sold into slavery. But destiny had chosen a different path for him. His intelligence, humility, and striking personality caught the attention of his master, Qutbuddin Aibak himself. Over time, Iltutmish rose from a mere slave to a trusted officer, a loyal commander, and eventually the governor of Badon, one of the key provinces of early Delhi rule. It was during these years that Iltutmish proved his ability to govern and to lead. When Aibak died, the nobles of Lahore attempted to crown Aibak's son, Aram Shah, as ruler. But Aram Shah lacked both experience and strength. The Turkish nobles were divided, the administration was weak, and the future of the Sultanate was uncertain. Sensing the danger, the leading emirs invited Iltutmish, then governor of Badon, to take control. He accepted, and after defeating Aram Shah in battle around 1211 CE, Iltutmish ascended the throne of Delhi. At that moment, the Delhi Sultanate was little more than a name. Its authority was questioned by many local rulers, and its survival was far from guaranteed. But Iltutmish was not a man easily intimidated. He knew that if he wanted to create a lasting empire, he would need not just military victories, but strong institutions, loyal officers, and legitimate recognition. His first challenge came almost immediately. The Ghurid Empire, which had once ruled over Delhi, had collapsed. To the west, the Khwarezmian Empire was being crushed by the Mongols under Genghis Khan. To the east, the Rajput kings, especially those of Ranthambore, Gwalior, and Bengal, were preparing to strike against the weakened Sultanate. Delhi was surrounded by enemies, and inside its walls, many nobles still viewed Iltutmish as an upstart, a former slave who had dared to claim the throne. But Iltutmish's strength lay in patience and strategy. He consolidated his control step by step, province by province. He defeated internal rivals, reasserted his rule over Lahore and Ajmer, and began to restore order in the northern plains. His military skill was matched by his political vision. He understood that raw power alone could not sustain a kingdom. He needed legitimacy, both from his people and from the wider Muslim world. To secure that, Iltutmish did something remarkable. In 1229, he received formal recognition from the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad. The Caliph sent him robes of honor, a diploma of investiture, and a symbolic title confirming him as the legitimate ruler of Hindustan. This was a turning point. It meant that, in the eyes of the Islamic world, Iltutmish was no longer a rebel governor. He was now the Sultan of Delhi, ruling with divine and political sanction. It was this moment that gave the Delhi Sultanate its true foundation as an independent Islamic state in India. Yet, even as his position strengthened, the threats did not disappear. In 1221, during the early years of his reign, a terrifying shadow appeared on the horizon: the Mongols. Genghis Khan's armies were sweeping across Central Asia, destroying everything in their path. When the Khwarezmian prince Jalal ad-Din fled toward India, Genghis Khan followed, reaching the banks of the Indus. The Mongols stood at the frontier of Iltutmish's realm. Imagine the tension in Delhi at that time, a storm of destruction only days away. But Iltutmish, unlike many rash rulers, chose wisdom over war. He refused to shelter Jalal ad-Din, knowing that it would invite Mongol invasion. At the same time, he prepared his defenses, ensuring that if war came, Delhi would be ready. His diplomacy worked. The Mongols turned back, sparing India from the same devastation that had consumed much of Asia. Through this single act of prudence, Iltutmish protected not only his throne, but the survival of Indian civilization itself. Over the next 2 decades, he turned his attention inward to strengthen the foundations of governance. He reorganized the administration, dividing the empire into provinces, each ruled by loyal governors. He introduced the silver tanka and the copper jital, standardized coins that brought stability to the economy. He created a disciplined bureaucracy and surrounded himself with capable Turkish nobles known as the Chihalgani, or the 40. This council helped him manage the growing affairs of the state, ensuring that decisions were made with both wisdom and strength. But with power came rebellion. Many of these nobles, once loyal, began to see themselves as kingmakers. Iltutmish had to walk a fine line, rewarding loyalty but crushing arrogance. He dealt firmly with revolts in Bengal, Ranthambore, and Multan. His campaigns were swift and decisive, proving that Delhi was no longer a temporary garrison. It was the capital of a true empire. He also extended his influence southward. In 1225, he sent forces into Bengal, bringing it back under control after years of chaos. His commanders marched through the fertile plains, re-establishing order in towns and cities that had slipped into rebellion. With every victory, the Delhi Sultanate expanded. Its administration spread across northern India, from Lahore to Lucknow, from Ajmer to Bengal. Under Iltutmish, Delhi itself began to change. It transformed from a military outpost into a thriving capital, filled with mosques, markets, and monuments. One of the most enduring symbols of his reign is the Qutbuddin Minar. Although its construction had begun under Qutbuddin Aibak, it was Iltutmish who completed it, adding the elegant upper stories that still stand today. The Minar became not only a tower of victory, but a symbol of permanence, a message that the rule of Delhi was no longer temporary but enduring. But his reign also saw the growth of culture and learning. Scholars, poets, and theologians from Persia and Central Asia found refuge in his court. The city of Delhi began to attract minds and merchants alike, becoming a center of exchange between the Islamic world and the Indian subcontinent. Yet, despite his grandeur, Iltutmish remained deeply disciplined. He was known for his piety, simplicity, and dedication to justice. Chroniclers describe him as a man who balanced faith with reason and power with humility. But perhaps one of his most remarkable decisions came not from war or policy, but from within his own family. Iltutmish had many sons, but few possessed the wisdom or courage to rule. Among his children, it was his daughter Razia who impressed him most. She was intelligent, articulate, and capable of leadership. Defying convention, Iltutmish declared her as his heir, a decision that shocked the conservative nobles of his time. It was a testament to his modern vision that ability, not gender, should decide who leads. Toward the end of his reign, Iltutmish faced both illness and unrest. The empire he had built was vast, and its management demanded constant vigilance. His health declined, and by 1236 CE, he passed away, leaving behind a kingdom far stronger than the one he had inherited. From a divided and uncertain state, he had built a dynasty that would rule India for the next 3 centuries. When historians look back, they see Iltutmish not as a conqueror, but as a builder, a man who took a fragile foundation and turned it into an enduring empire. It was under him that Delhi became the heart of northern India, that administration took form, that the Sultanate earned legitimacy, and that India became part of a wider, connected world stretching from Baghdad to Bengal. After his death, the Sultanate did not collapse. It endured. Though his successors would face turmoil, the systems he created, the coins he minted, the officials he trained, and the institutions he built continued to guide Delhi's destiny. That is why historians call him not just a ruler, but the real founder of the Delhi Sultanate. His story is also a story of transformation, of how a slave could become a sultan, of how intelligence and integrity could overcome birth and status. It reflects the fluidity of the early medieval world, where courage, wisdom, and patience could raise a man from the lowest rank to the highest throne. And yet, despite all his success, Iltutmish remained aware of the fragility of power. He knew that empires rise and fall, but justice and good governance leave a longer legacy. That awareness guided his rule, a sense of duty that was larger than ambition. So, when we think about the Delhi Sultanate, about its monuments, its institutions, its influence, we should remember the man who gave it shape and endurance. Iltutmish may not have been the first to rule from Delhi, but he was the first to make Delhi rule. And perhaps that is the truest mark of a founder, not one who begins, but one who builds to last. As you reflect on his story, ask yourself, how does a man born a slave become a king who defines an era? Is greatness inherited or earned through perseverance? Can one person's vision hold together a nation torn by conflict and diversity? And more importantly, in our own time, when power often comes quickly and fades even faster, what does Iltutmish's patience, strategy, and humility teach us about the meaning of leadership? Because sometimes the true founders of history are not those who conquer lands, but those who conquer time itself.